ain't got no boundaries to hold me back. Boundaries is what I lack. Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Conflation Station. Hop on board the next train out, and let's take a ride to a place where anything's possible.
Hello and welcome to the Conflation Station. My name is Hugo Yorway and I'll be your tour guide for today's podcast, including political commentary, conspiracy theories, and some cool music from the Electric Glove Orchestra. At the Conflation Station, our team of creative writers and novice journalists combine elements of irony, satire, and pure absurdity to create insightful political commentary and homespun conflated conspiracy theories taken from today's news headlines. In the first segment of our show, known as the 14th Circuit, or what I like to call the Court of Public Opinion, renowned raconteur the Reverend Rusty Stubblefield shares his unfiltered and unhinged views about America's constitutional, or shall I say, unconstitutional crisis. His topic this week is political assassinations. Rusty, the microphone is all yours.
Well, thank you, Hugo. In these here United States, black folks has always been oppressed. They was brought here as slaves, and they's been denied their equal rights ever since. And even though that their U.S. Constitution says there's a white man's equal, don't tell it to them, 'cause their lived experience tells them something different, particularly in them their red states down south. Now, over the last 250 years, these black folks have had some real outstanding leaders in their struggle for equality. Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Marcus Garvey, Jackie Robinson, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X, to name a few. By the way, I hear Malcolm X's God-given name at birth was Malcolm Little. When Malcolm was a boy, he worked on a farm. I wonder if that feller Malcolm X has any relations to that composer fella Dude X. I digress. Anywho, these black folks did everything from leading slaves to they's freedom underground to leading protests and boycotts. And the last three I mentioned, King, Malcolm X, and Medgar Evers, well, they even gave they's lives for the civil rights movements way back in the 20th century. They were shot and murdered in cold blood. They's deaths was political assassinations, and they's became martyrs for their cause. I bet those Trumpers loathe the fact that it was a white guy that assassinated their boy Charlie Kirk. They was probably hoping it was a black guy, a brown guy, or maybe even an illegal immigrant, so they's can be justified in supporting President Trump sending in the military to occupy them big cities. Now, before I goes any further on this here topic, as a reverend, it's my job to preach the Holy Scripture. And in the good book, it says flat out that killing is damn wrong. It's right there in black and white in them there 10 Commandments, and killing black folk ain't no different from killing white folk. But in the context of what happened last week, I just got to ask myself, why is this here Charlie Kirk feller who was shot dead last week for his political agitating being held up to be some sort of a martyr, like Martin Luther King Jr. was? Charlie Kirk was a political operative for that evil feller Donald Trump. Charlie Kirk helped that evil man get reelected. That there white supremacist Kirk feller was nothing but a pawn in Donald Trump's game. And now after he's been, quotes, assassinated, these Republicans is canonizing him like he's some sort of saint. If martyrs can go to hell, and I believe they can, that's where that Kirk feller is probably going to be heading, because on this here planet Earth, he was doing the devil's work, Trump's work. Now, as I said, there ain't no justification for killing. No way, no how. This Kirk feller had a family, wife, kids, and friends, and they sure as hell going to be a big gap in the lives of those he left behind. And for that Tyler Robinson, that feller should be tried to the fullest extent of the law possible. And if that means he gets the death penalty, so be it. But let's be clear, Charlie Kirk may be a MAGA folk hero, but he ain't no martyr in the true sense of the word. He ain't no Martin Luther King, he ain't no Malcolm X, and he certainly ain't no John F. Kennedy neither. Let's try to keep things in perspective. And now, as I say at the end of each of my weekly sermons, if you and me put our pretty little heads together, we may still be able to figure out how to get this here US of A back on track. Thank y'all for listening.
Rusty Stubblefield is an unemployed certified auto mechanic and deacon at the Church of Our Lady of Original Sin. And now it's time to take our weekly musical journey with the inimitable Electric Love Orchestra featuring Rusty Stubblefield on vocals in an original piece written by the world-renowned composer E. Dudax entitled The Kirk. Stay tuned and we'll be right back with this week's Conflated Conspiracy Theories.
Doing the Kirk, doing the Captain Kirk, doing the Kirk, doing the Charlie Kirk. Don't be a jerk, just do the Kirk. Doing the Kirk, doing the Captain Kirk, doing the Kirk, doing the Charlie Kirk. Don't be a jerk, just do the Kirk. Charlie Kirk ain't Captain Kirk. Charlie Kirk ain't Captain Kirk. Doing the Kirk, doing the Kirk, doing the Kirk. Kirk.
Thank you, Rusty E. Dudax and the Electric Love Orchestra for creating that musical masterpiece, available online at Bearberry Path Music. In our next segment of the podcast, we'll be sharing various homegrown conspiracy theories that have been developed by our staff of creative writers and novice journalists who believe first and foremost that at the Conflation Station, anything is possible. We invite you, our listeners, to share your own homegrown conspiracy theories by sending an email to bearberrypathmusic, one word, at gmail.com. That's bearberrypathmusic, one word, at gmail.com, and place the words conspiracy theory in the subject line. We would love to hear from you, our listeners. Today, we will be continuing our coverage of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Our lead story this week focuses on Donald Trump's decision to award the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Tyler Robinson rather than give it to assassinated conservative political activist Charlie Kirk. After wrestling with the idea of awarding Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom for the work he did in attracting college students to the MAGA movement, President Trump opted to give the medal to Tyler Robinson, Kirk's alleged assassin. Trump said, quote, "While Charlie was like a son to me, helping me win the 2024 election is not a good reason to award him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. It reeks of partisan politics, and as much as I hate those radical liberal Democrats, I don't want to play politics when it involves an assassination. So instead, I chose to give the Medal of Freedom to Tyler Robinson. He comes from a family of staunch Republicans, and his parents are gun owners. More importantly, I owe Tyler a debt of gratitude for completely distracting the American public and the fake news media from the story on Jeffrey Epstein for more than 1 week. But for Tyler's bold and decisive assassination of Charlie Kirk, the country would still be focused on the Epstein files, and that is not in my or the country's best interest." End quote. Trump came right out and said it, quote, "In my book, Tyler is the hero, not Charlie." Our team of novice reporters also learned that because the name Kirk is associated with Jewish actor William Shatner, Trump did not want to offend his base. Trump said, quotes, "Jews are not going to like what I'm about to say, but I really don't support Israel's occupation of Gaza. I just like Netanyahu. He's a tough guy, and I like tough guys. He's a lot like Putin, but with more hair. I don't know why Netanyahu ordered a strike on Qatar. I just got an airplane from them. I think he made them a little pissed off last week." End quote. Trump publicly thanked Tyler Robinson's parents for turning him in. Trump said, quote, "That was an act of courage. As a parent of 2 criminal sons myself, I often think about turning them into the authorities. but I usually come to my wits after a few Diet Cokes and a couple of cheeseburgers. While Don Jr. and Eric are bad actors and complicit in my crimes, they still are my sons, and I need to protect them in order to protect myself. I'm hoping that my youngest son, Barron, can learn a few tricks from his older brothers as soon as his mother stops changing his diapers." End quote. So while Republicans mourn Charlie Kirk's assassination, not only are Americans at large distracted from thinking about the Jeffrey Epstein files, they are also not thinking about the war in the Ukraine, the high cost of living, tariffs, the military occupation of our country's major urban cities, and President Trump's draconian immigration policies. Trump flew to Utah for Tyler Robinson's arraignment on Tuesday. Trump said, quote, "As soon as Tyler enters his plea in court, I will congratulate him, shake his hand, and hang the Presidential Medal of Freedom around his neck. Might as well kill two birds with one stone. Then I'll be off to merry old England to offend the British monarchy. I'll meet with King Charles. I call him Charlie. He's no Charlie Kirk, but I love his English accent." End quote. And now it's time to take a short musical break to listen to another musical piece composed by E. Dude X and performed by Rusty Stubblefield and the Electric Love Orchestra, entitled Civil War. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with another conflated conspiracy theory.
Are we heading towards a war? Civil war. Civil war. Are we heading towards a war? Civil war. Civil war. Are we heading towards a war? Civil war. Civil war. Are we heading towards a war? Civil war. Civil war.
Thank you, boys and girls. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Remember, the Electric Love Orchestra's complete catalog is available online at Bearberry Path Music. Our next story focuses on Charlie Kirk's beliefs and views. While the assassination of Charlie Kirk is a tragedy that will leave yet another temporary stain on an already tarnished America, at the Conflation Station, we believe that we owe it to you, our listeners, to report what Charlie Kirk believed in and what he opposed. He opposed gay rights and transgender rights. He opposed gun control and argued that more people should have guns. Kirk even said, quote, "A few deaths every year was a small price to pay to preserve the Second Amendment." End quote. How ironic. Kirk opposed the civil rights movement and belittled Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. by calling him a, quote, "awful man." In 2021, Kirk referred to George Floyd as a, quote, "scumbag." Kirk was opposed to affirmative action, and he called Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, quote, "a diversity hire." Kirk opposed gender equality. He published a list of academics which he called Professor Watch. This was a list of professors who teach about gender ideology and racial justice. On social media, professors whose names appeared on Charlie's watch lists said that they were threatened, doxxed, suspended, harassed, and in some cases even fired. So while Charlie Kirk is supposedly a champion of free speech, he encouraged suppression of free speech by professors whose names he placed on his watch list. On a different note, our fellow media partner, the New York Times, reported that Kirk rejected the idea that climate change posed an existential threat to humanity. Kirk described climate change as complete gibberish, nonsense, and balderdash. Kirk also stated that he was absolutely opposed to abortion. Charlie compared abortion to the Holocaust. When asked what he would do if his daughter was raped and became pregnant at the age of 10, he said, quote, "the baby should be born." Kirk also made his beliefs on feminism well known. On his show, in commenting on Taylor Swift's engagement to Travis Kelce, Kirk told Swift to, quote, "reject feminism, submit to your husband. Taylor, you're not in charge," end quote. Kirk has also used his platform to make his position on civil rights and race abundantly clear. Kirk is quoted as saying, "We made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s. And if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified," end quote. Kirk also maintained that it is a fact that blacks go prowling around for fun to target white people. In referring to the Democratic Party, Kirk said that, quote, "The American Democrat Party hates this country. They want to see it collapse. They love it when America becomes less white. Islam is not compatible with Western civilization. Islam is the sword the left is using to slit the throat of America," end quote. Kirk's evangelicalism infected both the tone and content of his message. While he was open to talk with anyone, he was even more steadfast in his confidence that only his opinion was the correct one. He said, quote, "If you do not have a religious basis, specifically a Christian one for your society, something else is going to replace it." Kirk also called Democratic leaders, quotes, "maggots, vermin, and swine." He said that transgender identity was, quote, "a middle finger to God." Kirk had every right to express his views and advocate for them. His murder was an abomination. Unlike Charlie, we at the Conflation Station support gun control. We do not believe that the Second Amendment gives anyone a right to carry arms at will. As Americans, our freedom of speech is protected by the First Amendment, and it is ironic that Charlie met his demise at the end of a gun. Call it spiritual justice. All Americans are entitled to believe what they want, and no one should ever be murdered because of the viewpoint they express.
Well, we've reached our destination. We'll be back next week to pick you up for yet another journey to and from the Conflation Station.